So if you haven't checked the Starborn powers in Starfield, then you're missing out on a ton of very fun gameplay. We're looking at some very strong abilities that can let you traverse the environment in cool new ways, even deal a lot more damage, crowd control enemies, and even create entire swarms of allies to attack everything in sight. Plus, way more ways to become almost invincible. So today we're gonna take a look at some of the best choices you should definitely use. But all of this starts with the mission called Into the Unknown, which comes relatively early in the main story. During this, you get to unlock your first temple, as well as your starting anti-gravity field ability. And this is an already awesome skill to have, as it lets you suspend targets in the air for like 5 to 10 seconds, during which they can't do anything, they cannot react, so they kind of act like sitting ducks, or should I say floating ducks, for you to easily take down. But from that point on, you can unlock additional temples, like 20 plus at the very least, that each give you additional, even stronger powers. So every time you travel in a new system, and assuming there's a temple inside, it will now appear into the misc section of your quest log. But you can also talk to Vladimir back at the lodge or on the eye, so that he can pinpoint additional artifact temples for you to find. From this point on, simply following the planet location, the first thing you'll want to do is to pull up your scanners and just pan around the camera until you see that distortion effect appearing onto the outer ring. This is going to indicate that in that direction there's a temple, so simply head over there and complete the puzzle. Now the puzzle is always going to be the exact same, nothing changes. It's always going to be picking up these shiny orbs and then going in the ring in the middle, which is now going to unlock that power. But at the end, you will also have to find one of these guardians that will also provide you a very important resource that you can use to faster regen all of these powers and basically spam them a lot more often. Do be careful though, because they can be quite difficult. So let's get started with some of the strong options, and then a few more that are a bit more situational in my opinion, or even a few that are bugged. But beginning with traversal, we have personal atmosphere. This is going to give you pure and clean oxygen for quite a lot of seconds. And what this means is that you will completely reduce that CO2 level, letting you sprint for very long periods of time. As a matter of fact, this is going to be one of the best methods to traverse on planets. And by the way, you can absolutely make this work if you have too much weight carry capacity on you. Bypass some of that and just like run back to your ship and whatnot. Totally helps a ton with that. Another one also for traversal that is really great is the Grav Dash. However, there is a downside to it. So this lets you travel forward using the forces of gravity. It's a really awesome way to push your character and cover more distance. However, keep in mind that for some reason, at the end of the animation, this tends to ignore gravity. And what happens is that oftentimes at the end of like a fifth chain, you will just drop dead, basically because of the insane forces of gravity. So not sure why this ignores the already existing gravity, but yeah, once it gets fixed, it should be much better than it is. In the meantime, just use it on the ground level. Moving to more combat related abilities, we have the phased time, and just like what the name implies, this slows down time for a few seconds, giving you plenty of room to just set up a ton of damage, headshots, and essentially mow down the enemies with really powerful guns. Now, this isn't going to make you any faster. You're still going to have the same speed as any of the enemies, so reload animations will be just as slow. However, because you have more time to react, you can more easily set up headshots and a lot of damage to essentially destroy entire groups of enemies very fast. In fact, this is one of my favorite abilities in the entire game. The only downside to it is that it has a starting animation during which, when your hand is in the air, you cannot shoot for like 1 or 2 seconds, but you can totally do so right after. Another very strong option is the gravity well, kinda an alternative to our gravity field, as in it creates a center point of a very strong force that attracts everything in the middle. This includes both enemies and any object that's not stuck to the ground, even hitting enemies in the face with like frying pans and whatever there is in the environment. But this is a much better option than that one because it groups enemies very nicely in a very packed and compact area, so that you can unleash some nice explosions, maybe some grenades, and take them down much easier than with the other option. Plus, it's constantly going to generate that gravity field, so even if they do escape, they immediately get sucked back in. Another, I would say, god tier ability is the Sunless Space. This is probably one of the best projectile abilities in the entire game, as it essentially lets you shoot this kind of like projectile of ice that freezes targets in a pretty solid AoE. And because this lasts for so long, it's one of the best abilities against any enemy, be it aliens, be it humans, doesn't matter, even robots are easy targets with this one. And you also don't have to worry about them shooting you anymore, and it's very easy to spam, so one of the best by far in the entire game. Another one is Elemental Pool. Now this is more useful for resource collecting. We do have a couple of those in the trees as well. So this is going to let you pull in any non-organic or inorganic resources directly to you, and this is especially useful for minerals. So if you don't want to waste any time mining them, which can be very slow, you just go in an area, press this, and everything in that area around you will be sucked into your inventory. This is going to be your go-to ability if you're planning to farm certain minerals in the end game. Another one similar to this is Eternal Harvest. This works a bit different, but on organic materials like the flora. You can make it completely regrow almost infinitely. So let's say you go to one of these trees, collect the resource, you can then pop off the ability, and this is going to completely regenerate that resource so that you can grab it again. So you can do this almost infinitely. However, the circle area that you can activate this in is rather small, so do be careful to be close to these plants when you use it. Let's keep on going with some other combat related abilities, and again, god tier, we have the Void Form. This lets you transform or well become invisible for like 10 seconds or so, but it's going to be OP. Invisibility in Bethesda games is always going to be OP because the AI just freaks out when this happens. You can still get noticed by enemies if you get too close or stick in the same spot for too long, but yeah, it's going to severely reduce the distance at which they can detect you, essentially giving you the opportunity to still take advantage of the stealth damage modifiers when you also use silenced weapons, for example. So not just that, but it also helps you to disengage. So let's say you stuck too much into an area and enemies kind of know your position, you can just pop off the Void Form, move a little bit to the side or to a different location, and they will completely lose track of you, which is why you will notice your status going from danger immediately to caution and then even drop back to stealth. So you can just back to back gain the stealth advantages again and take down enemies from a different angle and rinse and repeat until the entire base is pretty much gone. If you go with this route and want to fully dedicate yourself to stealth, then I also suggest coupling this with the Sense Star Stuff, another ability that essentially lets you see all living creatures, be it aliens or humans, through walls. This is amazing to have if you're sneaking into a base and kind of want to see all enemies' positions so that you can set up headshots and stealth kills more easily. More often than not, you will notice that enemies for some reason spot you even from behind the corner because the AI is that bad. Well, this helps a ton with that. Observe them and then take them down in cool ways. But let's keep on going with some cloning abilities. There are a couple of them for yourself and for the enemy, but the strongest by far is the Parallel Self. So this is going to let you summon a copy or a clone of yourself, and this includes both the equipment as well as the weapons. So if you have something like a very strong legendary minigun, your clone will deal that much damage with it. So you're essentially doubling your damage for absolutely free. It even works if you don't have any ammo left in your own chambers, but the clone will have an infinite amount of bullets to still shoot, so it's always going to be useful. Even if you use something like rocket launchers or explosives, this is going to get copied by the clone and they will continuously use it until all targets are down. The only couple of downsides I can think of is the really dumb AI. Sometimes you will see your clone just shooting in the walls, trying to hit a target on the other side, or just running away, trying to tactically reposition, but otherwise it would just waste time. But in every other regard, it's a really nice one to have. Now, there's also a variant called Inner Demon that forces an enemy to confront their inner demons and basically creates a clone of themselves to attack them. But I found this not to be that great because usually enemies don't have great weapons, plus the HP on these clones is much lower, which means they die faster, they are less efficient, and they don't deal as much damage. Maybe it would be great against certain bosses, but outside of that, yeah, I just don't find it that useful compared to yours, especially since you can make yourself very overpowered. The next one is Life Forced, and this drains enemies HP and then transfers that back to you, which is a great source for extra healing in case you're missing med packs or just want to survive for a bit longer. It can definitely work, and it can even be casted on multiple targets at the same time. However, there are some major downsides to it that make it not be as great as it could be. One of which is the fact that oftentimes the effect doesn't seem to heal you at all. Many times I've hit a target but the effect doesn't even pop off, and even more so, there are occasions in which it doesn't seem that it stacks if you cast it on multiple targets at the same time. Not sure what that is all about, but if this gets fully fixed and implemented, I think it could be one of the best abilities to have. But of course, what good are these abilities if you cannot force mind control others? Well, there are a couple of abilities here that help with that. One of them is Alien Reanimation. This lets you resurrect a dead alien to fight alongside with you for a certain duration, like 10, 15, 20 seconds at most. And this, by the way, absolutely works on everything, including Terramorphs. So you can take down one of these in case you're fighting multiple targets, reanimate one of the fallen Terramorphs, and then make them fight with the original targets. You can even spam this on multiple aliens at the same time in case a lot of them are downed, and kind of create your own army of alien xenomorphs to attack everything in sight at your command. Now, they don't last that long and eventually they do fall down, but the best thing about this is that you can endlessly reanimate them for as long as the fight lasts. So yeah, I mean, endless uses makes this ability really great. Moving on to defensive capabilities, we have the Reactive Shield. This is going to give you a metastatic shell that reflects some of the projectiles back at the original targets, plus it gives you some increased resistances to damage. This can be really good. It does only work from the front, but it does reflect some of the bullets back, and it does stack with other reflect sources that you have, including the one that sets enemies on fire. So it's pretty okay. However, it might be better against, again, bosses, or when you're being overwhelmed by too many enemies and kinda like take down a few of them and even gain some resistances. But it does work even better if you combine that with the Moon Form, which is going to make you static, kinda like become a stone rock, but get even higher resistances to every type of damage. We can further combine these, both of them, with the 75% damage reduction from the anti-Xeno legendary spacesuit to basically reduce all incoming damage, become completely immortal, and reflect some of that damage back to the targets. It's only going to last for like 5-10 seconds, but I mean, having invulnerability for that long can be a great source of defeating enemies that are much stronger than you. So again, higher difficulty can definitely benefit from this. Another ability that has to deal with CO2 levels is Create Vacuum. So this is going to completely remove all the oxygen in a pretty large area. So it's amazing against targets that don't have any spacesuits on. In that case, they will essentially just choke on the CO2 levels until their lungs collapse. And yeah, this is one of the best damages over time abilities I've used up until now. However, it's also going to trigger your allies to attack you if you're not being careful, so just keep that in mind. Now, from this point on, there are some really amazing abilities that look great when you use them. However, in practice, they seemed a little bit too weak for my taste personally. So one of them is the Supernova. This looks very awesome. It's very shiny. It covers a really good area, and normally it can almost one-shot regular targets, but that's only on the normal difficulty. On the higher versions, it's probably going to be less effective. Plus, it has a very high cost, so it's not really something you can spam, and as such, it's only situationally good. You can probably make use of a different skill that might give you more uses. There's also a Fusroda variant in this game. We have the Gravity Wave, which, according to its description, is a force strong enough to propel almost anything or anyone. However, when you use it, it kind of feels like a wet sponge. It's nowhere near close to the levels of Fusroda from Skyrim. It basically just topples enemies down, and that's basically it. So this is definitely in need of a big buff so that it can throw enemies way further back to the levels that we had in Skyrim, because right now it can't even throw enemies off buildings unless there's absolutely no obstacle in the way. Another projectile ability that I found rather weak was Solar Flares. So this unleashes an intense burst of solar energy that also has a chance to set enemies on fire. However, it's probably not going to be the best. Yeah, the damage over there is rather low, and you can probably have better sources with you of damage. But it can be situationally okay as an additional source of damage with your weapons. However, if you want that, I think there's a much better option, which is the particle beam. This deals pure particle energy damage. The damage is much higher, though it doesn't set enemies on fire. So this can fit a really good battle mage type of role, in which you use weapons as your main primary source of damage, as well as spells as an additional secondary one, maybe to finish targets off or to just have an additional source of damage. However, one that is kind of impressive is the creator's piece. So this is going to force all enemies around you to drop their weapons and kind of become not really peaceful, but they won't attack you as much with other sources. Plus, you can even steal those from them as they drop the weapons on the ground, so it's a pretty interesting option to have. It gives you quite a bit of time and room to just maneuver through them and take them down, because they will not react for at least a few seconds. Another one is the Earthbound. Now, I'm not sure if this even works. Its description says that it changes the gravity around you in Earth gravity levels for a duration. I tested this on a low gravity moon and it doesn't seem to do anything. Either that or I'm using it wrong, but I was not noticing anything different with this ability on. But this is pretty much it with the best and worst abilities. Let me know down below which ones you use. In the meantime, I totally suggest checking out some of my other videos, including this one where we covered some of the best mods and ways to get the best weapons out there, or the one from yesterday in which we covered a really awesome set of armors and other faction rewards. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.